She's a master life coach who's built a business empowering over 100 Black women entrepreneurs. She spent years in learning and development, training corporate consultants, teaching them how to assess situations, communicate effectively, and lead with confidence. She's mastered delegation, strategic thinking, reading people, managing conflict, skills that made her unstoppable in the boardroom. But here's the question: do the same skills that make you a powerhouse in business make you impossible to love? Can you assess a partner the way you assess a business deal? Should you delegate in relationships like you delegate at work? And what happens when your professional instincts start sabotaging your personal life? Today, I'm sitting down with Jasmine Stokes, not to hear her love story, but to extract the executive lessons in love hidden inside her business expertise. Because here's what I know: the skills that build empires can also build walls. The instincts that protect you professionally can isolate you personally. And sometimes the very things that make you successful are the same things keeping you single. So we're digging into the intersection. Where does business wisdom serve you in love, and where does it cost you? I'm Renitris L. Strong, and this is Executive Lessons in Love.
These are your executive lessons in love. The same mastery that you've been dreaming of. Accountability, growth, the long-term play you've been
So what we're gonna do is go back. Okay, let's go back to 2015.
Mm-hmm.
On your bedroom floor, crying, saying yes to God's will.
Yes.
As someone who coaches with women through business decisions every day, it's important to balance our faith with practicality, right? So, in my experience, surrender becomes necessary after many gentle nudges where God is inviting us to yield control. And then we finally do when we almost have no other choice.
Mm.
So my question to you is, what were some of those gentle invitations or nudges that you ignored?
Full transparency, I don't even know if I had the wisdom to understand what the gentle nudges were then compared to now. And so you figure leading up to 2015, I was married prior 2006 to 2009. And then I'm just like trying to figure it out in my own mind. So my relationship with Christ, being filled with the Holy Ghost and all that came from the divorce and my seek, like, okay, God, gotta help me, help me, help me. So then even leaving from that to get to 2015, I think it was no more gentle with Jasmine because clearly I didn't understand it and I didn't see it. It was a stripping, it was okay, now you're gonna have to get on your knees and get in your face. And I can honestly say since then, I haven't had a warning like that. I've had gentle nudges of, you're not seeking me first, you about to go right, and really learning his voice, right, and how he speaks to me. That experience, that encounter helped me to understand his voice and continue my seek with him. So in that, prior to 2015, I can't say I had a gentle nudge because I don't think I had the wisdom to know.
Okay.
Now, absolutely. I got some gentle nudges in there when it was time to leave corporate. I have some gentle nudges when it came to my trust factor. I've had some gentle nudges in these last 2 years of really learning what a leader is. And some of those no's and taking the emotional part out of it. So I know we're gonna get into that, but I want to answer that question. But yes, now I'm getting the gentle nudges. But prior to 2015, I can't honestly say what one would have been.
What would have been? That makes sense, but it's almost like with our kids. We're gentle. They got this gentle
Hmm.
parent now.
Yes.
But you start out and you're gentle. I had a friend. I remember my friend. It was at first if I was spending the night at her house and it was the daughter had to go to school when she would wake up. Good morning, wake up,
Hmm.
Pooh, it's time to get up. And okay now. It's time to get up. But
Mhm.
get
Yes.
your behind up, So yeah, that's the same thing that we go through with God. It's like, okay, this might not be the right path to go through. And it's
Mhm.
easy to ignore those. And then now you in a whole lot of mess. And now you on your face on the floor, and it's a mess. So a lot of times, in my experience, I've come to this place and it's time to fully surrender, but it's a mess of my own making.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so thank God he doesn't do a "I told you so," it's like,
yes,
"Okay."
yes. Yes. Tell them I told you so. And we've learned too along the way, again, Lord, Lord, let your will be done, triumphing ours. Because if we can be honest, there's sometimes God has given us exactly what we asked for, right? And so you have that permissive will versus his perfect
Right,
will. And some of us, to what you're saying, we gotta stand in you in what you wanted to be in. You said you wanted this, you had to have it. Okay. And so I've learned in that too, I may petition some things, but then I end it with, but Lord, let your will be done. Because if
right.
there's anything that I asked you for that is not what you have written for me, I don't even want it. I've been through enough. So that's good.
And that
That's good,
comes from
sis.
maturing, but when I started thinking about, "Okay, we're gonna do executive lessons in love," and the women that I wanted to interview, and when your name came up, I was like, "Jasmine's not gonna wanna do that." She don't even but you talk a little bit about your marriage, but you don't really talk about relationships in that way, and I wanted to be really specific about the women that I talked. I didn't want anybody that was disillusioned or so heartbroken that they had a rational conversation. That's another coach's ministry. You need to have your mind ready. This is what
Yes.
I don't wanna have to convince you. And so, but everybody that he told me to ask, it was an immediate yes. And it has been amazing. I don't know where this is going, but I'm excited about it. But again, it would not have come without that surrender because I was like, I wanted to hold on to that.
You're like, you know what? I just no. And I think that's the hardest thing is the pivot, right? We say that word and it's one of my favorites until it shows itself up for me, right? And I'm like, wait.
Yeah, now you gotta
You
take your own.
know, I gotta take my own advice, and we can be loyal to a fault. We can keep ourselves behind, and I'm firmly more and more beginning to believe like everything we need, we have, and it's really again surrendering, but listening to God say, "Hey, do this, pitch this. Here go the people." You could easily be like, "Well, no, no, no." Even you saying, "Why would they want to?" and they don't. I used to talk about my marriage and my dating woes and all that stuff early on in my business, but as things shifted and my audience shifted, it's like I had to shift from what I would talk about the most. So
Right.
when you came, I'm like, oh, this is my jam. I started out as a relationship, spiritual, and confidence coach.
Oh,
Entrepreneurship and
wow.
entrepreneurs came 2.5, almost 3 years later from
Wow.
me moving in it. Yeah. So I started out really as a relationship coach and working with married women or those that wanted to be married. So
Wow.
when you came, it was like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
So
that
that
was
part, I probably should
amazing.
tell more my story some more. But yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, and
happy.
even, I was like, wow, our stories really parallel with the getting married young, early, and then getting divorced. So God, I mean, okay, you know what you're
Here
talking
I
about.
am.
We'll see what comes of this. So what did you saying yes to God actually to mean? Like, what did it mean practically? How did you know that it was His plan and not your plan? And I guess it goes along with the surrendering and that touched on it earlier about deciphering his voice from the other noise. So how did you know that
So
it was
that yes,
yeah,
I was tired of me. At that point, I had done everything that I knew how to do. And clearly what I knew how to do wasn't it because I got the same result. And so it was a full, you know what? I'm going to deny myself these things, these people, places, or things. And I'm just going to focus on you and your word. So getting really studying his word, being able to understand it for myself, how to apply it to my life. And then I really was just focused on God, my daughter, and my career at the time. So hearing you knew you wanted to publish and be in entrepreneurship was never my thing. I was supposed to retire as a corporate bae. And it's funny because it's like, no, you didn't think this was it, but it's still kind of the
It's
same
still
thing. You
kind of the
wanted to
same thing.
climb the ladder and, it's like, oh, you're going to get to be that. And you might be a few of those positions in your business for some time, but I champion those that started their own thing. And everything that I do and what I teach women as life coaches, you coach on life. You coach on the things that you've been through. The School of the Hard Knocks certifies us, which is life.
Right.
You go to get a certification, understand how to run it as a business and how to streamline it. But nobody can tell you and I what we went through a divorce. A person that hasn't gone through a divorce doesn't understand there's a grief process, even if the relationship was horrible, right? Most people are like, oh, you knew it was over, you're done. There's a process.
It is a process.
Women that I help do, no one can tell you the dynamic, of a mother-daughter relationship and breaking curses. And so going down that hole. So my practical yes was literally, I'm tired of me, show me the way. I'm fully submitted. Whatever you say goes, and whatever you say doesn't go, it doesn't go. And that wasn't, everybody doesn't agree. I've learned that when God tests you, he will turn your mom to say no, your dad to say no, those close to you, because do you trust me or do you trust them?
Trust them. And the first time I really saw evidence of that was when my mom went back to school to teach, to get her degree to teach. But she got her degree. She had been a teacher's assistant my whole life. And we actually graduated. I graduated from high school the same year she graduated from college. And so she'd always been amazing. People really thought she was a teacher. They didn't even know she was an assistant because she was just that good. And so she went back and she got her degree. And I think my mom taught for maybe 2 years, and then she got the call to go to divinity school. And everybody's in the family like, what? I mean, nobody agreed with that, packing up and moving to Atlanta and going to ITC. And she had to do it anyway. And now I'm learning some of the things that were said to her during that process, and she still had to push through. But when you know that I don't know if that makes the surrender easier or not, that the people aren't on board.
Well, so for me, it has made it easier. So I've had a few surrenders. So I told God yes, January 2015. Well, then God told me to move to Tennessee. Okay, so my job was moving me here. I traveled all the time with them. And so the training headquarters were going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. I wouldn't have to travel anymore. So you're talking about me with my daughter. I know nobody in Tennessee, none of that. And you're talking about anybody that know how grandparents are about their grandkids. It's like, you're going to take, right? I have to have this conversation with my ex-husband that I'm going to take, he's getting her every, the weekends, and you can pop up and see her whenever. But now we talk about scheduled stuff. And I think the yes and the forward movement with those surrenders, when you build that relationship with God and it's truly, I want what he has for me, whatever you say do, I'm willing to do. That's what made it easier. And when you go through that first level and, mom doesn't understand, dad doesn't understand, people don't understand, and then you see what he does, without a shadow of a doubt, I don't care what nobody say or do, he did that. And if this is what he's saying to do, then this is what I'm going to do. So that first one was a little like, but I had been sitting with him that it was like, hey, and what I do know too, he's going to tell you what to do. And if everybody goes against it, more than likely you're in the right seat, because he's going to make sure that nobody gets the glory but him. So
I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
yeah,
You
if
don't want
somebody can
anybody
steal the
to say,
glory,
I told you to move to Tennessee.
right there,
Like, no,
right there.
Yeah, you told me I was crazy.
You told me don't go, right? You told me what's going,
Right.
so if that's my kind of, I won't call it my track or my confirmation. I'd be like, is God getting the glory? And if I know that he's getting the glory, it's a firm yes for me. But if I can start to pinpoint man, then I'm like, I don't really know about that. Yeah.
I don't know about that. We got to go back to the drawing
Yeah, I
board.
got to go. I got to sit back. I got to sit.
So you were moved up in I
So,
hadn't thought about it that way, but you're absolutely
yeah.
right. You
If
don't want
somebody can
anybody to
steal the
make you say,
glory,
"I told you to move to Tennessee."
right there,
Like, "No,
right there.
yeah, you told me I was crazy to
You
move to
told me don't go, right? You
Tennessee."
told me
Right.
so if that's my kind of, I want to call it my track or my confirmation. I'd be like, is God getting the glory? And if I know that he's getting the glory, it's a firm yes for me. But if I can start to pinpoint man, then I'm like, I don't really know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We gotta go back to the drawing
Yeah, I
board.
gotta go. I gotta sit back. I gotta sit.
So you were moved up in corporate.
So
You
you
were
were
moved up in corporate. You were increasing your income. You bought your first home and your car, but the guy you were dating couldn't handle your climb. In business, we call that growing out of your market. When did you realize you'd outgrown him, and how did your corporate ambition reveal what you really needed in a partner?
one thing to clarify is rented my first home. I
You
hadn't purchased
rented
it
your
yet,
first.
but
Okay.
I was renting my first home, and I say that because I purchased my first house with my husband, and so I always like, but I rented my first home, and so me and this particular person, we grew up in the same, neighborhoods in a sense, south side of Chicago. It was this so when I switched positions, so I left the bank. I worked for Northern Trust Bank. It's a very prestigious bank in Chicago. And if the world would have it that way, then that's where you retire from. It's one of those old school, you get the good job, you get with the bank, you get with the city jobs, government
Got your
jobs,
pension and you
you know,
right.
yes, they had a pension. This is where you're gonna retire from. And how you come into a company, that's how you're gonna be able to move up. And so what people fail to realize is you'll always be underpaid because you came in underpaid. Right. And
Right.
so they're not gonna give you a 300% increase to be at market. And so I remember stepping out into consulting. I took a temporary contract role for a year. And I said I was, going to do this. And the look on his face, he had even said something to his parents. They were super old school, like, you really gon' it was like, how dare you? Like, that thing ain't gonna work. So I took that position, get a new car. Now I'm about to rent my own house. And that was all like in about a 6 month span. But I'm watching just the attitude. I'm watching we not connecting. I'm watching our goals, desires for more does not align.
Yeah.
You're really content with less, right? And it's one of those things like even trying to make yourself, hello, somebody to my ladies, well, this is a good guy. And you trying to, in a sense, dumb yourself down and put a cap on yourself in the name of love, right? And again, you start praying, God starts moving that thing like, this ain't it. This ain't it. And this
You're
ain't it.
uncomfortable. And he may
You
be a good guy. He just not may not be the
He
guy.
is. It might be. Not a good guy for me. And no offense, ladies, they don't be doing nothing when you leave. Okay. You be the
Right.
covering. You look back, you be like, he ain't doing nothing, and he gained weight. And no, don't get you started. But you ain't look like,
Yeah.
see, he ain't doing nothing. But it was just even the look, have you ever seen someone look at you and it's not loving, it's
It's
not
not a loving.
caring, it's not nurturing, it's a jealousy. And you
Mhm.
can't be in competition with your mate, like, and you know how people when they tell you you think you all that, and it's like, no, you think I'm
You
all
think
that.
I'm all that.
Thanks for confirming and validating me. And it was one of these things, Arnitras. It wasn't a big blowout. It wasn't this breakup that did all of this. We literally like broke up over text.
Oh, wow.
It was like, because the just you're not showing up, you're not doing this, and it was one night you're supposed to come visit, and he gave me some lame excuse. We good and grown, right? And I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. Whatever got you, you go ahead and do that. Don't worry about it. And he was just like, oh, it's like that. Okay, cool. And we ain't talk no more. You talking about
Wow.
and so I'm like, okay, wait a minute, guy. It's just gone. And it
Yeah.
was like, don't chase.
Yeah.
Don't go after. One day led to 2 days, led to three, and that's how that ended. It was one of the smoothest, the most like, and I was so, it was a peace.
Mm.
It was a peace, like, okay,
Yeah.
you trust
Wow.
me? You trust, like,
Yeah.
God, you trust me or you want this?
Yeah. That's hard. I remember I dated a guy who when I was doing my blog. And anytime we would have a disagreement, he would always say, "Now go write about that on your blog." Like, I don't even
Oh.
talk about relationships. But the way it was so much malice behind the words. And what
Mhm.
I realized was that there wasn't enough room for two people who I want he wanted the spotlight. I didn't necessarily want the spotlight,
Mhm.
but that's where I was headed. And I was thinking maybe he saw something in me that I didn't even see. So I was like, I can't
Absolutely.
even talk about relationships. Why are you but why the malice though? You know,
Mhm.
what is that about? And I just wanted when Honey and I got together, I had just started Blessed Dating Experience at the time. And I told him, I said, "Are you along for the ride with me with this? I
Mhm.
don't know where it's going." I said, "I've been an open book so far. I would love to be able to talk about our relationship.
Mhm.
I'm not just gonna talk about the good stuff, I'm gonna talk about the bad stuff. But there's ever anything that happens that you don't want me to discuss, and just say it." And he's only done it twice. Don't tell Bless me to
Like
type
that.
it.
Wait a minute.
Everything else, but he was just open, and I can't. He is when I tell you this man and built me a whole studio, and I got different
Mhm.
sets in there, and just anything that I can just I want something, or just say, "Hey, I would like a chandelier here." Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I was looking at the one that has a fan on it, and there's the 8 foot pole, even like I'm like, "Babe, can you hang these pictures?" I go back in there. This man got a leveler, a
Yeah,
ruler,
come
to
on.
change the light and
Come on.
measuring. I just asked you to, but okay, you know what you're doing. But yeah, it's just night and day with the
Night and
support. And I think it's so necessary. And I think that a lot of times, because honestly, when I first met Honey, I was like, nah, I don't think. I just I dated him and another guy for about a month or so, and I
Okay.
ended up committing to the other guy. Um, because I just, sometimes we don't. If it doesn't look and it doesn't come in the package that we think it's supposed to come, because he's older than I am. And
Okay.
I was just like, "Nah." And then I was telling my mom, I wasn't even ready. He was a whole grown man, not just in age, but just in maturity.
Come
I was
on.
still on my rah-rah. I can be
Come
honest.
on. Be honest.
And I told him, if we had gotten together then, you probably wouldn't want to hear my name. I wasn't ready. It took some refining for me to mature to be able to handle, the type of man that he was. But again, that's still part of the surrender part. And it was so funny
Mhm.
because when we linked back up, he was like, "You wrote a children's book and you've been doing Blessed Video, you've been doing your thing." I was like, "You were stalking me?"
He was
He's like, "No,
watching.
not stalking, but I just been kind of sitting back." He always said I was like Nelly, I was playing my position like a shortstop. But yeah, but so that all of that is still the surrender, because if you notice that I've been talking about this assessment that I have created, because I'm just
Mhm.
toying with this idea of the way that successful women approach relationships is just different. And so
Mhm.
there are 5 patterns, and each pattern needs something different. It's deeper than love languages, because love language is about how you see love, but the divine relationship design is about how you give and receive, and it's about what you do to be success in love. So one person might think we I want to have a love that people look at and say, "Oh my God, that's a love.
Mhm.
They really built something together. They have a legacy." Or some people might have a spiritual, they want to come together and build advance the kingdom.
Mhm.
But all of that, it makes so much sense when I look back at every woman that's taken that assessment has been like, "Oh my God, Arnitris, I never thought about it like." But
Mhm.
it was just I was like, "I can't take the credit because I go to sleep and wake up and I have this whole concept. I just gotta write it
You
down,
gotta write it down.
it
You gotta write
down
it
and
down.
flesh it out." But this has been almost 2 years in the making, this assessment, just refining and getting it right and getting the questions just right and everything. But it's really been amazing, but it's still none of that would have come without that surrender.
Without that first surrender.
Without that first surrender, it always goes back to that.
because that's the starting point. And I just want to say, I love to, you talk about assessments. And when we think about love, and especially as successful women, right, we're climbing the corporate ladder, entrepreneurship ladder. But one of the things I started to do, even with my children, is like run performance reviews and assess motherhood, right? Assess the relationship. And my husband, we took love languages when we first started dating. And to your point, like, I met somebody, and me and my husband knew each other when we were youth. So I knew him before that guy. I knew him before my first husband, but we reconnected, and we both had been married, divorced, so there was some maturity there, right? We had took some time to learn ourselves and figure a few things out. But to have somebody to speak life into you, I am an entrepreneur because my husband literally spoke it into me, then supports me, then does all these different things. And so when I look back and to your point, and to what I was telling you, if I would have forced that, this person is jealous of, he
And
could
you would have
see it
been
probably
distraction.
then, right? But then this man is like, let me celebrate it. And so as a successful woman, taking those practices, so to my boss babes and my CEOs, when you assess that business and you assess that program, assess that relationship too. And some of those things have to have hard yeses and nos, hard exceeds, meets, does not meet expectations. Hello.
Right. You
And
ain't
learning
improving.
those
Right.
and just keeping it real, right? And be willing also. One of the good things you just said. So don't just assess them, but let them assess you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because to your point, we could be two great people. And I had somebody in that dating whoa that was amazing. We just weren't great for each other, right? Did all the things right. We didn't have sex. I have to put that out there to people. Like, you can date, you can healthily date,
Yeah.
not commingle these things. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, I'm here to tell some of the ladies, the ones you don't do nothing with, you will be more hurt about it not working than some of the ones you have done something with.
That's the
But
truth.
and then with those assessments also, allowing yourself, you're going to grow, you're going to change, right? So what my primary love language was 10 years ago, it's not that today, right? Because, and so that those assessments will come in handy. I mean, even running yours probably every 2 to 3 years, like, whoa. And then being able to see what you had originally, to see what, where you're trending. I'm going to use y'all words, okay? Where
Mm-hmm.
you're trending and all that good stuff. So I love an assessment. I do. Most people say I'm very analytical. I always want to, like, let's recap, let's sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband be like, I don't want to do all that. Okay. I always want to ask questions, but I feel like that's how you continuously evolve. So I just
And
want to
I
do that.
always use the analogy that when I was younger and my mom would take me to buy shoes, and she would
Mm-hmm.
always buy shoes, and she, of course, but she wanted to make sure I had some room to grow
A
in.
little room to grow.
And so you need that in your relationships too. Yeah, y'all fit together for this space in your life, but is there room for you to grow in it?
Marriage is not hard. It's growing together, right? Are
Mhm.
you going to be on the same wavelength? Are we in step with each other? Okay, we running this race and you just kind of like right there. Or did you go and you literally sat down and you like, I don't want to do that. So it's the growing together, because things are going to change. You're going to change physically, emotionally, spiritually, you should be growing. And so that's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
So you talked a lot about this. Is a perfect segue into my next question. So you taught consultants in learning and development, but you found yourself assessing your date like training sessions. But you
Hmm.
had a guy who told you don't try to assess me. What did
Yes.
your professional instincts reveal that saved you from wasting your time?
So I really learned. So what we were just saying is black and white. So at the time I became a consultant, we did. I just lost the name of it as we were talking. Predictive index. Okay, we
Oh,
were doing that assessment. It's Myers Briggs. You all those different things. We did predictive index. And so we would assess the consultants we hired. And we had it down to a science that based off this particular personality, this job was the right fit. Okay. And so when we would do that session in the onboarding, everybody would go bananas because they didn't know this. Okay. So we would actually show them, print their assessments, and then we would go into, their likes, their dislikes, how they function, what makes them happy at work, and they would go bananas. And because it was just me and this other guy in training, we were able to send these assessments to our friends. We would tell people, like, if you're dating somebody, you can send it to your. So, that became my thing. Like, now I'm going to see your personality type. And so when I would be talking about work all the time, and I'm like, hey, let's do this. It was like, wait a minute. You ain't going to assess me. You ain't going to be, because I got so good at it, it would work. It was like, you're not going to open me up. And
Yeah, but
then
what are you afraid of me finding out? What you
that was the
hiding?
other thing too. You're not gonna know that we really don't go well together. I'm
Right.
just here taking up space, as I call empty fillers, where
Mhm.
nothing you're just there and you're not adding value, right? You're taking away, but women, especially Black women, we can get so we just want to be loved, right? And we want to love, so we will settle. Right. And so when you go through that process to really know that you're worthy of, and again, when you get a relationship with Christ, you you're not gonna love me how Jesus loved me? You're not gonna take care of me. When you think of all that Christ does, and we know that's from a father's standpoint, but when you look at the husband and the bride, and what the husband is, he's supposed to love you like Christ loved the church. So if you take that and compare that to somebody you dating, and I say I want something and he does it. I think I want, right? They understand the little quirks that we like, right? My husband knows if I buy something, I want to put together right away. I come in, he just get the toolkit, like, well, where you want to hang this? What you want to do? Okay, great. Right? He knows if it's something with a car, let me tell you, I'm leaving the car right there. Come pick me up. You figure it out. My car had went out, and before I could even hang up the phone, he was right there. So a person that truly loves you is concerned and cares about what you are concerned and care about. And so when you start to assess, right, this is me. Okay, so if I know this is me, also, can I present me well? Can I talk about who I am, what I stand for, what I like, what I don't like, to be able to have that conversation with someone? So when you think about all of this, going back to our surrender, it also goes to us knowing ourselves. We're so busy trying to get in these relationships when you're not clear on you. So I love that you said, I really wasn't ready for him. And so to all my boss chicks that want a boss man, they the same as us. They're assessing too. They're going to make sure that
And
you
they
can
should.
bring, and they should, and that you can bring these to the table. And I've had conversations with a lot of women. You want this type of man, but have you thought about what type of woman he wants?
That's right. To get clear, that's what, I had a bedroom mirror moment and was like, Lord, where is my husband? Where is my husband? And just, you know, pacing back and forth. And so I got clear about the type of man that I wanted. And then I had to be honest with myself. Would that type of man want me as I
Mm. Oh,
and yeah, where I was falling short, I made sure that I started working on those things because
come
those
on.
were
Come on.
I wanted my appetite had changed and I had to rise to that level. The word mindset gets tossed around so much, but it was like a switch went off. And the type of men that I started to attract were totally different. Totally different.
Come
I
on
remember
here.
I went out to uh um there is like a cigar lounge where they have live bands and
Mm-hmm.
my friend and I went and
Okay,
I
so
walked,
this
there were
conversation
5
with
guys
Fancy
around me in a
solidified
circle,
the show's
all of them
concept
trying to
that
get
the
my
same
attention. My friend
standards
was
we
like, "What
have in
kind of
business
perfume you got
need
on?"
to
And
be brought
maybe
to
it's not a
love
perfume.
too.
It's
Let's
not
This ain't the
even a
extract the
perfume, baby.
lessons from
go
It's
today's
not the
home.
episode.
perfume.
Lesson
This is
number
a longer
one: when
conversation,
someone
but it's
resents
not the
your
perfume.
success,
But it was
they're
really,
not
it
your
was like a
partner,
But it
switch.
they're
was
dead
though. I
weight.
was gonna say it wasn't, but
Ashley
it
told us
was.
something that
Yeah,
stopped
it
me
is.
in my
Well, I didn't
It,
buy
tracks.
the.
Her ex would
yeah, she
complain
ain't buy from the
constantly
store. Hello,
that
yes,
she
yes,
only
yes.
cared
You
about
ain't
the
buy from the
business,
store.
that
No,
she
this can't
never
be
had
bought.
time for
Yeah,
him,
maybe
that
bought,
all
but
her
it
money went
was
in
it
to
was
swat
an
her.
it was
He
amazing
resented every
to
award,
look back because
every honor,
I was doing
every milestone.
research and
But
I
here's
was
what she
dating 5
realized
guys at the
later:
time when Honey and I
that business he
reconnected.
resented was
Okay.
keeping the
And the
roof
other
over
5
their
guys that I
head.
was
He
dating,
was having job
um,
issues.
every
She
one of them
was
were
the
like,
one
"Okay, when,"
supporting
because
them
I was
both.
honest, I let
He
them
was
know,
complaining
some
about the
people.
very
I'm
thing
dating.
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
was keeping
right.
them afloat.
And each one of them were like,
Now
"Well, when are you
listen to
gonna
this
stop saying
as an
when I
executive.
decide?" because for the first
business,
time,
when you have a
I
partner
was
who
in control.
drain
I was
resources
choosing.
and
We're
generates
told,
nothing
that
and
when a man
resents your
finds a wife, he finds
success,
a good thing.
you cut
Yeah,
them
but that
loose.
doesn't mean that I
You
don't have a
don't keep
choice in the man. I'm
fighting
not a
a
tulip
losing
that you just walk
investment,
by and pull up.
hoping it will turn
I
around.
gotta have a
You
choice
protect
about
your
whether I want
business and
to or
move
not.
on.
And
Yet Fancy
Honey was the
stayed in
only
that
one. When
relationship
I
for
told him, I said, I'm
14
seeing
years.
5 guys a night. He was like,
14
okay.
years of
And
arguments,
I said, wait a minute. I said,
resentment,
well,
and
that doesn't
carrying
mean,
someone who
I
should
said,
have
that
been
I'm
carrying
sleeping with
weight
all of them. He was
beside
like,
her.
well, knowing you not sleeping with
Here's
none
your
of them. Well, I'm
executive
glad you know
lesson.
me. You do know me.
Stop
So I'm
funding
not.
relationships that
And
drain
it
you.
was not a big deal,
If
but what
someone
he did
resents your
was
climb,
he made
instead of
sure
celebrating it,
that
they're not your
I saw
partner,
he had time on
they're
my
an
calendar
enemy.
every weekend.
And the same
So he would see me
decisiveness
this
he
weekend and he would
used to
say, hey,
cut
have you
business
been such and
losses,
such place? Let's go
apply
next
it to your
weekend.
personal
And
life.
2 or 3 months had gone by. My
Don't
friend was
stay
like, oh, you
14
got a
years with
boyfriend? I said,
someone
I don't.
who
That's
is
my
doing
friend. He
what
was
you
like,
did.
girl, you
Cut your
ain't been out with
losses
those other
and
guys.
keep
With
And
moving.
nobody else. He knew what he was doing.
I told him, I said, you know what? You think you
Lesson
slick.
number 2.
He was like,
The
oh, you
skills
caught
that
me. I
made you
mean, I saw what
valuable
I
in
wanted.
business
I made sure I
are
did what I
exactly
needed to
what
do
the
to
right
get it.
partner
But
wants
it
in a
was so
relationship.
different.
Here's
And
what
it
Fancy
was,
shared.
again, it
She
still goes
used to be
back to that
quiet,
surrender
behind the
and being
scenes,
honest with
afraid
ourselves
to
about
speak
like
up.
about
But
who we
building
are.
Swagger
And it's
forced
so it's
her to
not just
find
enough
her
to know
voice.
the type of
She
man we
had to
want.
learn to
Yes,
We
I
got to
communicate
did.
make sure that
clearly,
we're the type
speak
of
up for
woman that that
herself,
man wants
be
as well.
present and
Yes.
visible.
Yeah.
Those were hard
Absolutely.
lessons, but
So you broke the
necessary for
generational
business
curse of
growth.
staying in an
And
unhappy
here's the
marriage.
beautiful part.
So
The
without
exact
telling
skills
anyone
her
else's
ex were
story,
intimidated
what was the
by
moment
are
you
the same
realized you weren't
communication
going to
skills
wait
her current
20
partner
years like
values
the women
most
before
about
you?
her. Think
Yeah.
about
You
that.
got,
The same directness,
generations of
clarity, and ability
many
to
of us, right?
articulate
Our
what she
grandparents, our
needs
great
that
grandparents,
makes
just
her
the
an
old school
effective
aunties,
CEO.
uncles. You get
Her
married, you stay
current
married,
partner
right? And you
celebrates
see
it.
what
Her
40,
ex
50,
felt
60
threatened by
years
it.
of,
This
and
is a
you
pattern I
sit
see with
down with
every
women and they
single
tell their
successful
stories.
woman
And
I
so
talk to.
just even
The
breaking
skills
that
you
curse
develop to
from
build
an
your
African
career,
American standpoint,
strategic
that old
thinking,
school
clear
nature of,
communication,
and don't
boundary
get me wrong,
setting,
that's
presence.
what it
The
was at the
wrong
time.
person will be
That's what
intimidated by
happened,
them.
right? But even
They'll want you to
a bit
soften,
of,
dim
I'll
down,
call it
be
spiritual
less direct
bullying,
to
but
protect
they
their
didn't
ego.
understand it too.
The
They would
right
tell you
person sees
divorce,
those
in the
same skills
Bible.
and
And so I
recognizes
got
them
to
as
the point
assets.
too, tell
Your
me,
executive
people tell you the
lesson.
first 5 years
Stop
in the marriage
code
is hard. Show
switching
me in the
in your
Bible.
personal life.
Right. So I
You
got
spent
very, show
years
me in the
developing
scripture.
skills
Thou
that
its
make you
first
excellent
5
at what
years.
you
That's
do.
King James Version. They
Those
couldn't
aren't
show it.
flaws to
Right.
hide.
So if you
They're
couldn't
strengths to
show me,
celebrate.
when you give me
If
advice, if
someone
you don't have
tells
a
you
scripture to
you're
go
too
to it,
direct,
I don't want to
too
hear it.
ambitious,
Right.
And so
too
it
much,
doesn't take
that's
all of
not your
that.
person.
And when you tell someone
Find the
to sit
partner
in
who sees the
something
skills
that is
that built
abusive
your
in any way,
success
physically,
and says,
emotionally,
that's
spiritually, that's
exactly
not
what I
okay.
love about you.
That's right.
And then if you've
Fancy
been a
found her
product where
voice
you've
building
seen,
Swagger,
it comes
and
with
she
so
found
much
a partner
confusion,
who
right? You think
values
that
that
that's
voice,
accepted.
not
Then you have
someone
this
who wants to
anger phase. Then
silence
you
you.
have this irritation phase. And I
And
wanted my
lesson number
child
3,
to not
stop
be
trying to see
skewed
people as
with
you want
her
them to
view
be.
of me or her
Trust
dad,
the
right?
data.
And so it was just,
Fancy told us
we
that in
aren't
her
healthy
weakest
for one
moments,
another,
she would try
right?
to see people as
We
what she
co-parent
wanted
great
them to
now. We're
be,
great friends, but
instead
we
of
aren't
who
healthy
they
for one another.
actually were.
It could have
She
been a lot of it
feel
just
the red
super
flags,
young, right?
sense
And
the warning
you
signs,
just don't
but
know any
ignored them
better.
because she
But
was insecure
we
in
weren't
herself.
healthy for one another.
Sound
And
familiar?
I
In
made that
business, you
decision
know better than this.
to leave.
When a client
And
consistently
everybody didn't
misses
agree,
payments,
right?
you don't convince
Pastors,
yourself you're good
parents,
for it. You look at
spiritual,
the pattern. When a
intercessors and
vendor
all that,
keeps
because
missing
what they
deadlines,
were
you
taught
don't make
was you
excuses.
don't
You
leave.
read the
You
data
stick it
and
out.
find
You be
someone
unhappy
reliable.
for 10
You
years or
trust
15 or
methods
20.
over promises,
Oh, no, baby.
results
3 was
over
enough.
intention,
Okay. It stops
patterns
here. And I
over
was
potential.
willing that
Yet in
if
relationships, we
singleness was,
ignore
that's
the
what it was
same
going to be for
red
me, that's what it was
flags
going to
we
be.
never tolerate
And I do feel
professionally.
that God
We see
honored
someone
that.
show
I
up
am
late
so happy. I've
repeatedly
been
and
married
tell
to my husband for
ourselves
9 years and
they're just
I've
busy.
never had a day that
We
I did
watch
not
them
want to be
break
with him.
promises and think
And not even
they'll
in getting
change.
upset and arguing. And
We
I That's not
something's
everybody's story,
off
but it's
will
never been a
override our
day that it's like, you
intuition
know
because we
what?
want them
We
to
could
be
just end
who
this.
we
Never.
need them to
And
be.
so I'm a testament that you
Fancy
can
had to
have a happy,
learn,
you can get
but
through.
you
They can now
already
don't they
know
can get on
this
your
part.
nerves. Don't get me wrong. They can get
Trust
on your
the
nerves, and you could be
warnings.
like, could you
Mhm.
just
When
not
you
talk?
feel that
And
feeling,
but
that's
I've
something not the
never,
right feeling.
not
Wow.
once
Don't
Yep.
look
it.
past it.
Yeah, I've never
That's your
questioned. I've
executive
never, started
intuition
to look
telling
other
you the
places and get
data
to writing
doesn't
because now I
support the
write some stuff.
investment.
Let me figure. No.
Your
And
executive
so
lesson.
I broke
Apply the
that
same
and
discernment
showed
you
my
use in
daughter what
business
a
to
strong
your
Black woman
relationships.
is.
Watch
How
patterns,
sometimes you may have to
not
walk
potential.
alone for a
Trust the
season,
behavior,
but then
not
she gets to
excuses.
see me
Read the
and
red
my
flags
husband
like
just
you
as
read
happy
a
as can be.
balance
Her dad
sheet.
remarried, and
Objectively,
she got to see that,
clearly,
so she gets to
without
see us in those
emotion
healthy
clouding the data.
states. right?
And when
Versus
someone
when
shows
I
you
think
who
of
they
what she would
are
have just
through
been
their
drugged
actions,
through, right?
believe them
That
the
there
first
is
It
not
had
time.
worth it.
Don't
It's
wait
not
so
worth
many
it.
13 years to
lasting
finally
effects because
trust what you
I
knew
always say that I
all
didn't come
along.
from a healthy love. And so, the same with you, with me and my ex-husband, we were young. We didn't have any examples. We didn't know,
Yeah.
what to do. And, I just, I knew I didn't want to raise my kids in an environment where it wasn't loving or they didn't feel safe. Even knowing that, I can honestly say that the catalyst for me to really get intentional about being loved the way that I deserve to be loved was because my oldest daughter was getting ready to go to college. And I was like, okay, she's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
She was number 7 in her class, scholarships,
Yeah.
just brilliant. But I had not, I'd given her the life skills, but I had not shown her
Mm.
what love was supposed to look like. I told her what not to do.
Yeah, yeah,
But these
yeah.
kids, you gotta model the behavior you want them to emulate. And I was like, I really need my daughters to. I don't want her to go the scenic route through life because I realized that a lot of the things that happened in my life that got me off track was because I chose the wrong guy. And
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't want her. And then, I can't, prevent. She's gonna get her heart broken.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
She's gonna have to make some wrong decisions or stand up and realize what she needed. But I would still wanted her to have an example and say, hey, oh, this don't look like that.
Absolutely.
So that's not the right
Mm-hmm.
thing. And, I went to what you saying about the generational curses when we went to her graduation dinner and Honey and I walked in and he was like, where are the men? And I was like, you know what? Never even thought about
Mm.
that. And I'm looking around, at my aunts and my cousins, and I'm like,
Mm.
oh, wow. The men in our family do really well with marriage, but the women,
Wow.
not so much. So it's still a part of that, that I'm working through, even for my own generations and my cousins and stuff, trying to, you know, give them an example of what it should be or what it won't be. Um,
Yes.
it's not easy. It ain't easy
No.
blazing a path that nobody has ever done before. It's a lot. But
Yeah,
that
because
conversation got a little heavy. I wanted to lighten up the mood just a
yeah.
little. So let's do. I have a game that I have. I'm named it Real Talk or Cap because that's you love your cap and Real Talk.
Okay.
Real Talk. It's just I'm gonna say some common marriage advice, and so you
Okay.
tell me if it's Real Talk or Cap.
Okay.
When it's right, it's easy.
Real talk.
Okay. You'll just know when you met the one. real talk.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's just I'm gonna say some common marriage advice, and so you
Okay.
tell me if it's real talk or cap.
Okay.
When it's right, it's easy.
Real talk.
Okay, you'll just know when you met the one.
I don't have. I'm gonna say real talk. No, I'm gonna say real talk. I'm gonna
Okay,
say real talk.
marriage is 50-50.
Cap.
Cap. Okay. If you have to work at it, they're not your soulmate.
Cap.
You can't change someone, so don't even try.
Real to the real to the real talk. Okay.
You have to lose yourself to find us.
You have to lose yourself to find
Us.
cap.
Your spouse should be your best friend.
Cap.
You shouldn't have to ask her what you need. They should just know.
Ooh. I don't get no explanations on these. I'm saying cap right there. And yeah, I'm gonna say cap right there. Because that's not fair.
I think that's one of those things where they just feel like you should never, like, some things they will know, but there are some things that you may have to tell them. So
Right. And I
yeah,
guess it's some foundational
it's
things
not
to you,
an
but
absolute.
it's not an absolute, because women, we have conversations in our heads and we hold our spouses, our partners, we hold them accountable to the conversation you had in your head. And again, as you continue to change and grow, those needs kind of change. They could be situational sometimes. And so just to feel like a person should, people in their own head space. And so I think we all have to learn how to communicate. And my husband and I are learning how to, what we call, fight fair. And so just learning that just because you disagree or you say something, it doesn't mean I don't love you, I don't want to be with you, don't talk to me later or tomorrow. But being able to be real, like to get those things off and to say it how you need to say it. Sometimes you don't have time to dress it up. And so we're learning that. And so that's why I got to call cap on
I
the.
agree. All right, so March 6, 2015.
Yeah.
Benjamin DMs you 2 months after your surrender moment.
Yes.
We both had marriages that didn't work. And in business, failure teaches us what not to do. What did your first marriage teach you that made you a better
First marriage
partner?
taught me to speak up for myself. So when you're asking that question about losing yourself, absolutely not. Because the real you will come back. The real you will come out. And so this time I went into, which is what my first book was about, choosing God as my first husband. That was my boyfriend. That was my husband. And nothing could make me turn from him. So when I presented myself this time, I knew who I was, what I was stand for. I knew what I wanted, what I needed. But most importantly, I didn't have to shortchange or diminish God either. This is what it is for me. Do you accept that? And so my first marriage, it taught me that. Be who you are and be strong in it.
Be strong. Yeah, I love that. So you said Benjamin was the first man where you were 100% Jasmine, with no masks and no agenda. In corporate America, especially as a Black woman, you often have to code switch and perform. How did you learn to show up authentically in business? How did learning to show up authentically in business give you permission to show up authentically in love?
So when him and I met, well, so the company I worked for, I ended up working for a startup company that gave me, so in banking prior to, it wasn't a show up authentically as you. It was definitely a code switch.
Code switch.
And I still did some code switching and consulting and things like that because as many times I was the only Black face, right? So when you're working in especially human resources, training development, and consulting is a male dominated, white man male dominated field. And I was in the tech space. And so what happened was I got in, and one of my mentors today, it was a woman, was one of the first women that I ever connected to in the C-suite. And so when I saw her be her, I mean, fully down, it was like, so we could just, and I was encouraged to, I had that hand on my back to be who you are, say it how you say it. I became the face of that company by being myself. And so then, I meet my husband and it's like, I'm already moving in me. I didn't have to sugarcoat it, but then it's still some there. I didn't fully take the mask off until the Greater Me Consultant, honestly, because then it had no ties to corporate.
Yeah, okay. All right, that
Yeah.
makes sense. All right, I love it.
Yeah, I had the COVID mask on. I ain't have a full, but I had to put the face, I had to put, I had to cover the mouth. Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah.
You coach Black women entrepreneurs who are often told they're too much, too ambitious, too successful, too intimidating. What
Uh-huh.
business lesson do you teach them that also applies to finding a partner who can handle their greatness?
Mm. The business lesson. So in that, I teach them to do it God's way. And so when they come to me, women that come to me want to do it God's way. They haven't done it God's way. They're seeking him a little bit more. So when it comes to relationships or anything, you do it God's way. And when people think doing it God's way, they automatically think, it's just this prayer, you shaking in the closet. But no, doing things God's way is doing things in order, right? Doing things right, doing things in love, decently, so when they learn that, that's it's a bit of a challenge because some of us, we raggedy, right? We try to do the shortcut way. I don't think it take all of that, but it does.
Yeah, and a lot
Especially if it does.
for women, the skills that help us to be successful in business and corporate not are not necessarily feminine traits.
Mm,
They can lean kind of masculine sometimes. And
yes.
so I think that when men complain about successful women, I think that's what I'm hearing. They don't wanna date another dude. They want you to
Mm-hmm.
be soft and very demure, very, so I guess that's part of the code switching again, but again, if we could learn that balance of being able to fully be ourselves, because for me, wearing a mask is exhausting.
It is. And
It
you
is
get shortness of
exhausting.
breath. It's like,
Yeah, it's short, and it's just like I don't wanna do that in any of my relationships. I've learned that in my friendships, if I have to be careful about what I say because it may be taken the wrong way or I may hear it again, you might not be my person. And so I've
mm-hmm.
learned that, just for me, that mask is just not for me. So we're getting ready to wrap up. I always tell my clients the same skills that make you unstoppable in business can make you untouchable in love.
Ooh.
You
Mm.
went from corporate trainer to master life coach, building a business with 100 plus clients. Where did that skill serve you in relationships and where did it cost you?
Whew. So I think it's gonna be a double sword. It
Okay.
has served me in relationships, my tenacity, my loyalty, the hard work. My work ethic is is great. So to my bosses, like, you can boss up and you can still be soft, but it can cost you in a relationship. And so learning, you have many hats, but learning how to prioritize those hats. So being present in what you're doing. And so you can build this, but in building this, don't allow it to tear down this. And
Okay.
so that's what I've had to learn. I've learned that by prioritizing and knowing what's important and when it has to be important, and communication. And I know with mindset, everybody hates the word communication because we think like, give me something else. But when you really tap in, okay, I used to be really mad with mindset and coaching. Like, I don't need you to tell me I got this part. Actually, you don't.
Actually, you don't.
Actually, you don't. But communication. So when things are clear, and that's what I've been stretched with as a leader in these last 2 years, being very clear what is, what's not, what's this. And so when I learn that part over here, now I have to bring it over here into the relationship aspect. And then it's like it's in sync. But I notice when I'm not very clear in my communication, I'm not prioritizing well, and I'm giving something else way more energy than what I'm giving here without that prior communication because there's seasons. And so to
Yeah.
ask me about 50-50 and things like that, it's a seesaw. There are seasons, and when you have somebody that you're with and you're building, they understand, all right, the next 3 months, you got to hunker down because you got this going on, boom, boom, boom. So I got you. Right. And when they understand, so when you can communicate that vision and that mission properly, cohesively, and that's what I saw happen with the 100 plus women. But when I see a decline in sales and I see different things, I notice it's the communication,
It's
right? You
communication.
off.
Yeah. I love that. It always goes back to that communication. So for the woman who's accomplished everything professionally, but is still settling in love because she's tired of being alone, what would Big Jazz tell her right now?
Mm. You're tired of being alone, but you're still alone with another person. So if you're gonna be by yourself,
Yourself.
right?
Do bad all by
And you can do good all by yourself, right? That's what people understand. Like you can do bad or good. Depends on mindset, how you want to look at it. But the worst thing you could do is be in something with somebody, but be in it by yourself.
That
That's
is
that's the worst thing,
yeah.
right? It serves you no good and is messing you up more. And so
Yeah.
if you can step away, because clearly there's some things that you need to learn about yourself, and don't be afraid. You have standards. You know what I'm saying? You have expectations.
Mhm.
And if meet me in the middle. Meet me in the middle, right? And I'll say too, know what it is that you want from a person. If you don't need somebody that is equal to you financially, that's okay. That's your business. That's your life.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There are no hard and fast rules that apply to every relationship. You get to choose what's important to you and what's not. And social media will have you thinking something else. Social media, if 50-50 works for your household, who am I to
Then
tell
then
you
do it.
I'm not in your house?
I'm not.
You get to choose, and I think we need to get back to that. There are no hard and fast rules, and we're looking at social media, trying to gauge and to trying to insert these things into our relationships, into our expectation. It's wreaking havoc on some level. So
Oh,
you definitely have the choice to make to decide how your personal relationship is going to look, how it's going to work, and you don't have to go
absolutely.
by society standards. Because half of these people talking this, it ain't even.
They not even. I was just about to say, be careful. You calling people couple goals and all that, and that works for them, right? I tell my husband all the time, Jasmine, it works for Jasmine and Benjamin. Somebody else, we both had divorces. Clearly, there was a
It work.
disconnect on
Correct.
both of our ends, right? But yet we're perfect for each other. So make your own rules when it comes to
Make your own.
relationships. Make
I
your own
love it.
rules.
Oh, Jasmine, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me today. This has been, I think we could go for another hour,
We
honestly.
definitely could. We most definitely
Like
could.
for an old friend. But tell the people, let them know where they can find you online and what you
Yes.
have coming up.
Yeah, so coming up, let's see. We have completed all our classes for 2025, but starting up in the new year, we have our first class February 2026 launching. So if you're looking for life coach certification, want to start your business, you can enroll in class. We have 3 to 4 classes a year. We try to do one per quarter. I also open up my doors for exclusive one-on-one coaching, and that doesn't have to be business related. So I don't get to open them publicly as much because my clients never want to let go, but I work with 5 women at a time. I do mentor up to 2 women a year. So that again, I don't advertise that. I kind of see who's doing what and who needs help. And that, is a totally different type of experience, of course. And then we'll see. I am at the Feet of Jesus, but I do host a conference every year for women entrepreneurs. So you don't have to be a coach, but women entrepreneurs starting out, or you haven't gotten to $50,000 a year in your business. So that's my specialty. I work towards women that are starting, and we're looking possibly towards the last quarter of next year. I'm at his feet to see what, how, when, all those good things. But prayerfully, we'll be back next year for year 4. So it'll be a few things that you can touch in with. But if not, follow me on Facebook or Instagram at The Greater Me Consulting, and let's just connect. Let's meet in the comments and have a good time.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, I look forward to talking to you. I appreciate you so, 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 so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Good night.
All right.
You're not broken, you're not lost. Just never connected the dots across from boardroom excellence
Welcome to Love Notes, the signature segment of Executive Lessons in Love, where we capture the wisdom from today's conversation. I'm going to grab my journal and write down the 3 lessons we extracted, the ones you can actually use in your own life. This segment is made possible by Swag Her Society, a membership community for ambitious women entrepreneurs who like to keep it real. Swag Her Society is where you increase your visibility, find your tribe, access resources, and build alongside women who get it. Learn more in the show notes. Let's get to the lessons. This conversation with Jasmine was amazing. Let me grab my journal because she dropped 3 lessons I need to write down. Lesson number 1, trust your gut. That ugh feeling is data. Jasmine dated a guy who was content with little, and she said, I remember getting this ugh feeling, and then he wasn't even as fine anymore. Here's what she taught me. In business, you trust your instincts about deals that feel off. That same discernment applies to relationships. Stop ignoring that gut feeling. If something feels off, it probably is. Trust your discernment the way you trust it at work. Lesson number 2, you can't build a partnership with someone who resents your growth. As Jasmine climbed, he fell back, and she said, it was weird and hurtful, but I was so focused on there has to be more and I'm going to get it. In business, you outgrow certain partnerships as you scale. The same applies in relationships. As you grow, some people won't be able to come with you. You can't shrink to keep someone comfortable. Keep climbing. The right partner will climb with you. Lesson number 3, delegation isn't weakness, it's partnership. Jasmine learned to not carry everything alone in her relationships with her spouse and children. In business, you delegate to scale. The same applies in relationships. If you're carrying everything, you're not in a partnership, you're performing a one woman show, and you'll burn out. Stop carrying everything alone. Partnership requires letting someone else carry weight too. 3 lessons from Jasmine Stokes. Trust your gut. You can't build with someone who resents your growth. Delegation is partnership. Which lesson hit home for you? DM me or comment below. I want to know. Can you keep separate bank accounts and still have a strong partnership? Can you be financially independent without being emotionally cut off? And if you're a financial coach, how do you stop coaching your own partner? On our next episode, I'm talking to financial coach Nashea Richardson, and we're unpacking the intersection of money, independence, and love. Because here's what she learned. It's not about whether you have joint accounts or separate ones. It's about whether your values are aligned. It's not about never needing help. It's about being willing to receive it. And it's not about bringing your professional expertise home. It's about knowing when to turn it off. Nashea Richardson, financial coach, Executive Lessons in Love, December 2nd, after the Thanksgiving break. This is a conversation every financially independent woman needs to hear.